We are here today with Ana Villalpando from Long Beach Public Library, and she is going to talk to us about how to implement a virtual program designed to address digital literacy with cultural awareness. The name of the program is Cáigale al Zoom. She will demonstrate how community building can develop from these virtual interactions, increase use of library resources and programs, and grant community members roles as consultants and collaborators.
Hi everyone, it's a pleasure to be here with you. I am about to share my screen, so please confirm that you can see it without any issues. Got it? Awesome, thank you so much. Perfect. So I'm going to be talking about this program that we developed during the pandemic called Cáigale al Zoom. And it's a virtual, the focus of this presentation is virtual community building. As Sarah mentioned, my name is Ana Villalpando. I am the literacy coordinator at the Long Beach Public Library and somehow involved with Spanish programs for Spanish speakers, which is the case today. So before we start, I do want to talk a little bit, give a little bit of context of what is Cáigale al Zoom, right? So what is Cáigale al Zoom? Cáigale al Zoom, it's a Spanish speaking, and let me move my chat here for a bit. It's a Spanish-speaking virtual space dedicated to answer questions about how to use the library, right? So we can say that Cáigale al Zoom is a drop-in Zoom hour that we developed during the pandemic. It started in January 2021, and I'm going to give you a little bit of context about our community and how we decided to create this program. Okay, perfect. So where did Cáigale come from? So just so you have an idea of how Long Beach is composed, our population, 32% of Long Beach residents speak Spanish at home. 20.5% of residents speak English less than very well, and this is according to the Language Access Equity Toolkit. Now we have that information, so we're talking about a third of our population that are Spanish speakers, and that community, Spanish-speaking families are the ones that we serve, especially with Youth and Family Services Programming and the Family Learning Center. Now, the Library Services Performance Audit that was published in 2021 showed us that not all community members have the same opportunity to fully benefit from the library. And this disparity is especially because we did not offer enough programs in other languages than English. So from that audit, we got this result that our biggest obstacle to overcome was limited materials and services offered in languages other than English. So you can see in this graphic that, let me move my, here we go. You can see in this graphic, the main library, the Burnett branch, the Obama and the Mark Twain, around a third to a fourth of the population are considered limited English proficient patrons, and we only offered 2 to 4% of our programming in languages other than English. So obviously, this is a huge disparity. Now, if you keep in mind that this was these results were gathered before the pandemic, if you add the element of how difficult it can be to navigate digital literacy if you're not familiar to it, or the service right to this community was obviously being exacerbated. So we had this in mind when the pandemic was started, and how do we make sure that we can offer some of the services that we were offering before in the digital realm. So I'll give you a little bit of a case study here. One of our most used services that we, especially for Spanish-speaking families, is the Family Learning Center, which is the FLC. So this Family Learning Center is a space that offers drop-in homework help, computer-based learning with the purpose to enrich student study skills and develop parent participation, because parents usually join the students when they are conducting the sessions. So in 2019, we had a total of 16,144 sessions conducted in the FLC. Just before the pandemic, we had 4,167 sessions. Now imagine we closed obviously during the pandemic, and how are we serving this community that it was mostly composed by Spanish speakers now that we have to navigate the digital realm, right, or to transition to explore our online resources. So what we figured out is that we do have a service, and if you are familiar with Reviews, you know it's an excellent service that offers online tutoring sessions. So the idea of Cáigale was, how do we make sure that we are not only sharing these resources, but the way of navigating them and creating accounts and accessing to them is really accessible, and it's making sense in terms of cultural awareness, right? That we are conveying this information in a way that it makes sense or it clicks with our participants' context. So when we started by sharing how to access BrainFuse and always focusing on how to translate these services to Spanish, because in this case, we were serving Spanish speakers, right? So keeping this in mind, and this is a conversation that we started, we had more questions, right? How do we develop this program, or how do we make sure that this program is successful in terms of being able to connect to our community? So the first guiding question that we developed was, how do we engage with our Spanish-speaking community through virtual programming? And how do we turn those virtual programs into comprehensive learning experiences, right? Where it's not only about the resource that we are sharing, it's not only about how to navigate it, but making sure that you are obtaining a skill from this session, drop-in session. And derived from that question, then we ask ourselves, how do we make sure that we're meeting our patrons where they are in terms of digital literacy? And how do we make this transition as comfortable as possible? So the idea was to develop this program named Cáigale Zoom, which is like a quirky, inviting, simple name, where we basically just promoted it as, you have a question on how to use the library, you're free to join us. And this is the publicity that we used. So the format of Cáigale Zoom, we meet once a week, every Tuesday from 4:30 to 4:30 to 5:30 p.m. And if you have any questions about how to use the digital library, how to access our programming via YouTube, because we're talking, this was like in the beginning of 2021, how to put books on hold, how to access other libraries programming, other city resources, etc. We would be able to answer those questions. And if we were not able to answer the questions, we would do the research with you timely, right? So sharing our screen was a super important element on how to navigate or how to find answers to all of these questions that our patrons were posting. So what happens at Cáigale? And now you have like an idea is how we can just synthesize it, is a step-by-step guidance on how to access digital library resources and services, right? But it happens a little bit more than that, and that's where the community building part occurs. So what we do is that we explore our website. We always emphasize on how to change the language. It's automatically translated to the most spoken languages in Long Beach, the 3 most spoken languages in Long Beach other than English, how to access our digital library, how to create accounts on multiple resources, because it's not the same methodology for all of them. For some of them, you have to have an email available. For others, you only need your library card number. If you do not have a library card, how to get one online, what is the process, etc., etc. How to join virtual library programs, and how to connect with local organizations. So this was an idea of what happened at the beginning of Cáigale when it just developed, and how we do it each session. And I'm sure our participants are just like experts at this point on how to access our digital library. I share my screen and I always ask them, like, let's pretend I have no idea of how to access your library resources, right? Let's start with just opening Google. What do I have to do? I type Long Beach Public Library, and this is all happening in Spanish. Then how to change the language, how to access your different services, the calendar, etc. So the idea of doing it step by step and showing it how to do it is to make sure that participants become autonomous learners as well. And then at the end of the session, whoever is interested, they can share their screen as well, and we can all as a group guide them on how to access those resources. So this is basically how Cáigale looks like. But then it's a little bit more than that, right? So let's talk about what actually happens at Cáigale. And it's the topic of this conversation, it's virtual community building. And I had a little bit of trouble determining like the term to describe what happens at Cáigale, because it seems so subtle, right? Like we didn't have these objectives of community building when we started. It was pretty much just sharing what we had available during the pandemic and how to continue accessing those services, especially tutoring, since it was, as I mentioned, right, the Family Learning Center was highly visited, and then we closed during the pandemic. How do we continue to service our Spanish-speaking populations? But what
Anna, really quick,
Mhm.
Can you just go a little more slowly for our Spanish-speaking audience?
Yes, for sure.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Half speed.
Half speed. Okay.
I'm excited too, though. I get it.
Yes. So yes, I was talking about virtual community building. So what is happening also in terms of not only community building, it's virtually, it's tacit community building, right? It's subtle, it's between the lines, and it's not only within the community and our institution, right? It's not only a relationship between the library and the community, it's also within the community. So this shows you a little bit of everything that has been happening at Cáigale, right? So what happens with that relationship with the community and the library is engaging participants in the process of program development, right? And this may sound a little bit strange when we were just showcasing how to access these resources, but it evolved organically, and I will be talking about it in a second, to get to the point where our participants are acting as consultants. We're also setting the parameters to develop meaningful programs because we are in conversation with our participants and we are valuing stakeholders' expertise, right? When we are really granting them the opportunity and really taking on the information they're sharing with us on how we can improve our services for all community members, right? Now, within the community, how that looks like is that we are facilitating community involvement. We are expanding existing community strengths, and we are also forming informal partnerships. So how are we facilitating community involvement? Cáigale turned into this sort of live newsletter where community members come and share the different resources, different events that they are having. Different community and neighborhood associations come and share, and it's just like a cohesive program where you see members from different parts of the city participating actively in everything that they are developing. So it's incredibly collaborative. And then we are expanding those existing community strengths. And part of what I believe Cáigale makes Cáigale a little bit more special is that we really focus in making sure that we are recognizing the assets the community already has, right? So part of it, a fundamental part of it, is not assuming that our conception of the community and what we determine to be their needs is generalized, right? It's not one size fits all. We actually take feedback from the community and we try to develop programs based on that. So that has led to Cáigale being this space where we come and share and we develop programs together and explore what the possibilities of the libraries collaborating with the community. So I refer to it as an organic growth of Cáigale, right? So how does all of the things that are happening in Cáigale reflect now, right? So from the library, we pass from just talking about our services and resources and show them how to access, to a section of that hour is dedicated to introduce bilingual staff, right? And part of it, building this connection with our community, is making sure that now that we're open, we have bilingual staff that can address your needs. So we want them to put a face on everyone that can assist them and help them whenever they come to the library. And part of it is building this cultural awareness that we are not only sharing information about our resources and describing it, but making sure that we have the right strategies to make that information meaningful to our participants and to our community members. We're also doing interdepartmental promotion. Our bilingual staff comes, talk about the programs that they will be implementing in youth services, in the family learning service, community services, etc. So we are making sure that we are sharing the information with everyone that is involved with our community. And then we also have what it looks now, and it's a fundamental part of it being community building, is program consulting and data gathering, which is what we do. So how it evolved is that we do not only just conduct the sessions in person now, they extend into inviting the members from Cáigale to our community events and have them as active participants and promoters of the library services, and by actually collecting their feedback, and they provide their feedback and we collect them. So an example of this is now that we just obtained an ESL grant, we extended the format of Cáigale to actually host community talks in person once it was safe to do so. So all of the people from Cáigale came to a couple of those community talks and share with us what they would like to see for our potential programs, what schedule works, what has been their experience with previous programs. And we collected all that information. And once we had it, we dedicated a session of Cáigale to present, this is our proposal with everything that we have gathered from what you mentioned, right? So this is, I don't really use the term empowering because I don't think you can empower people, people empower themselves, but just gaining that confidence that your testimony is being taken by the library, and that your experience having valued has been extremely important for us to fortify those relationships with our community. We show them, this is our proposal with everything that you have said. And it was incredible to see, like, yes, we did mention that this is something that is a concern for our community. This is something that we would like to be interested in exploring, right? So we are definitely having that collaborative focus with our community members. Now, from the community, how it looks like, as I mentioned, it's a live community newsletter, right? People from the community, from different associations, formal or informal. And informal is in quotes because they are organizations, they are structured. They have been working and doing the work for years now. They're only not registered as a nonprofit or as an organization, but that doesn't mean they're not valuable partners. So what they do, they come, they share whatever events they're having. They even propose ideas for the library. They do resource sharing when they do food drives, when they gather donations for a certain activity, when they host events. They share the different resources for the community, and they have been a great help identifying community issues that we can address with services and resources that we have available at the library. So what is really important of how it has grown and how we have determined that relationship is that it has not been unilateral. It has not only come from the library, it has been in conjunction with the community. So it has been in conjunction with the community. And that is incredibly relevant because the community has opened their doors to their events and have us share the information and resources that we have as well. So it's not only that we invite the community and show them what we have, they actually have invited us to their events, and we are able to make further connections based on their invitations. And I already mentioned resource sharing, and they have been great help identifying community issues. So this is an example of how from that relationship that we developed from participants from Cáigale, we partnered with the Washington CPTO, that is a community parent teacher organization, a community organization, and they were interested in conducting a workshop about cyberbullying. And we provided the space, and the promotion of our services has been double-sided, right? We share what the community is doing. We invite other community members, other organizations to table at their event to offer the resources, and they invite us to their events and share our information. So this has been a fundamental part of how to make sure that we are conveying this information in a way that is significant and meaningful to the community. Because maybe our participants or the target demographic that we want to offer these services to do not really visit our website, do not really visitor social media. So it was part of the development of Cáigale to figure out how to have a presence in the community. And part of it was making sure that we are addressing where community was at in terms of digital literacy, right? So making sure that we are building the space as a safe space where it doesn't matter how you feel exploring digital resources, we will guide you step by step. Great. Great. So Cáigale has not only had outcomes when it comes to community building, but it has also had a really evident outcome when it comes to how our patrons and participants relate or manage library resources. So an example here is Overdrive, right? Our Spanish Overdrive checkouts for 2020, before this program was implemented, was a total of 1,406 items. And when it came to 2021, a year after we started implementing Cáigale, it was a total of 2,698 items. So that is an increase of 91% of our checkout collections. So this can show you that us exploring step by step how to access our resources and taking the time to make sure that that information is being received by the community does not only guarantee that our participants are accessing our resources, putting our books on hold, but also that they're knowledgeable of our collections and they share their feedback, right? Like maybe, Anna, you're missing this. Anna, we have not seen any materials related to this topic. This is what we want to see. So this year, 2022, from January to last month, we had a total of 1,163 items checked out. So that gives you an idea that if this is exponential, it will continue to probably be a total increase of 150% for this year. So we're really excited about this. And we're mentioning this outcome just to make sure that this community building does not only affect community services, right, or the outreach portion of it, but also it would manifest in the different areas of your library. So what can we learn from this case, specifically from Cáigale, that it has been installed in Long Beach since January 2021? Meet people where they are. That is basically the core suggestion, right? If you are trying to implement this type of programming, meet people where they are, and that is not making assumptions of how they navigate the library system, either digital or institution, right? People from different backgrounds can have a different perception of what this type of institution is. So do not make assumptions on how comfortable or not comfortable they feel navigating it. And obviously, if you add the component of digital literacy, how to access these programs through Zoom, it can be a little bit more complex. So make sure that you are addressing those. And if you're not sure how is this being perceived by the community, you can always ask and have those focus group. But make sure that you are building those connections and not just trying to take information from the community, because it has to be mutual. Another lessons that we may want to take into consideration is, as I mentioned, take time to get to know your community, invest in your community, create meaningful relationships, steer away from one size fits all approach. Do not assume that this program is just something that you can replicate without building that relationship with your community. So being able to host an event with the community CPTO took us about 50 weeks of work with the community, right? To build that confidence and to make sure that people feel confident also navigating our library system, not only in terms of materials, but also how to approach staff, how to make sure that you feel confident enough to know that this is a space where you belong. Also, don't impose your assumptions on what the community needs, as I mentioned. And here in CAPS, learn to identify your community's assets, right? Learn to, and take the time especially to see what the community has already installed, how they have navigated all of these systems already, and the strengths that they already have. And do not just try to impose what you believe should be a strength that they have to develop. So really value their expertise. And the last one, be mindful of the complexity of your community's context, because it's not going to be the same for all communities. And part of it is making sure that you are building those connections. And that would be it from my part.
Thank you, Anna.
Thank you.
We do have a question here in the Q&A, and it is, if Cáigale continues to be a weekly program even now, and how long did it take to gain momentum, or was it popular right away?
Hi, Diana. Thank you for your question. Actually, that is something that I would like to touch on. Cáigale will continue to be in a virtual format, which was not the intention at the beginning. The idea of Cáigale was just to serve as a solution while we were closed. And now, because we have seen the success, it's really interesting because we have probably showcased all of our resources at least twice, and people still come to Cáigale. So it's more that we're offering than just this how-to step-by-step guide, right? So that is the fundamental part of creating a program when you have those tight community links, and you just come because you feel it's a safe space, and you will get to learn not only from library services, but also from other services, programs, strategies, etc., that the community is developing. And for it to gain momentum, it's like this, right? We have sessions where we had 30 participants. There are sessions where we just have 3 of them. So it varies a lot. But we have only been able to grow because there are community members that are really invested in Cáigale share with the community. So they just send the link and invite their friends, and they all come over. And it has been the case also that they have taken the information or the tutorials on how to access these resources, and they implement them with their own groups.
Yeah, you sort of touched on it. The next question is, what is your typical engagement?
Yeah, so it varies a lot. We don't usually have less than 3 people. We had a couple of sessions that were highly attended, around 30 people, but we always have someone join. And part of the strategy in promoting it is emailing our participants directly, a reminder, right? Like 3 days before, hey, we're having this event. And then Tuesday morning, just remember that today we will be talking about this in particular. And then making sure that we serve those reminders, right? And part of it, and something that it's also included in the organic growth, is that if people are interested in the resources that we're sharing, and they're unable to come to the lessons, they email me and ask for a one-on-one tutorial. And it has been the case where groups of families, like all the neighborhood, is in front of the computer to see how to access BrainFuse to get homework help.
Great. So we have another question, comment and question. Such a great program, Anna. Congratulations. And the next part is, are you doing more Cáigale? Are you doing more Cáigale in person? And how do you manage staff capacity to expand?
Yes, so the idea of having the community talks, it's sort of transitioning to offering Cáigale as a hybrid model. The community talks are not per se named the same as Cáigale, but it's the same crowd, right? It's the same populations. So staff capacity, it has been an issue, but luckily we have a incredible staff that help us share the different resources and making sure that we're always providing new information. And part of it is also making sure that we are always going back to the services that we have offered in case a reminder is needed.
And the questions keep coming in. Do you think this would work with mobile libraries?
Definitely. Definitely. I think that is a great opportunity. Part of the difficulty, I believe to gain the momentum that was mentioned earlier, was that we had to strategize in some way how to make connections with really active community leaders, because it is different, especially as a migrant, if you do not feel comfortable navigating English-speaking spaces, to trust an institution, right? We do not know what has been our community's experience with libraries before. So maybe the next approach for Cáigale is transition into going into the communities, which we have been invited to. We were invited to a posada, which is like a Mexican Christmas party to promote our services. And I think a mobile library would definitely be the right approach to make sure that you are reaching other community members that may not come to the library.
So I have a question, and that is, how did you survey to find the best time and day if you're did you develop a paper survey, or what was your blanketing strategy there?
Yes, we asked community members and partnerships that we already had in place, like what time would you recommend? And we were always open to reconfigure the times and the hours. So the availability for our community is not the same when we have obviously in-person programming than when we have them online. So it's something that we have to be fully aware of. More people engage online because it's just easier. You can just be doing something else, doing your own thing, and then you're hearing everything that the library is offering. So yeah, but definitely make sure that you address it with the community, host a little community talk, talk to community leaders that are in place that can guide you to what is the best approach, what are the best times, and maybe online is the best way to go for them. Maybe it's not. And if it's online, but not all members feel comfortable navigating, maybe a Zoom tutorial is needed, right?
Right, okay. And I had another question, but yes. So did you notice if you changed the time anytime in between that attendance dipped and then rose again?
Not specifically with Cáigale, but it did happen with our other online programs for Spanish speakers. They happen on Saturdays at 3 p.m. One is a crossword solving puzzle, and the other is a Club de Noticias article club. And once the world started to come back to normality on Saturdays at 3 p.m., lovely days in Long Beach, it was hard to make sure that that our patrons were still coming. So part of it is making another strategy to see when we can host all of these programs, or what is the best timing.
Are there any more questions from the audience? You can put them in the chat box.
Me, I have one. If everyone doesn't know, Anna's been such a key element of getting our translations out, and that very quickly. She's amazing. I don't know what I'd do without her. But I'm wondering, how did you kind of find out about Creando, and what inspired you to get involved?
Oh, I think I found out by an email sent by the CLLS server, asking for if someone would be interested. And I was a participant, not a participant, an attendee at the last Creando, and I was just mind blown with the possibilities. And the theme, right, of this year is recreating reCreando Enlaces. So Cáigale el Zoom seemed like a perfect opportunity the perfect example of how we recreate those connections and we adapt them into creating something new, right? Not just assuming that taking this new approach that involves digital literacy only serves as a solution, right? Or as a band-aid to not having these services available during the pandemic, but that we're actually creating the opportunity for people to engage with the library in other ways, and that it's manifesting throughout our system, how we approach our collection, how we take feedback, and how we are really conscious about program developing now.
I have some comments for you.
Yes,
Ana has been such an amazing addition to the Creando Enlaces committee, and we appreciate her. And yeah, this is one from Diana that I also wondered about. Did you provide support for folks using Zoom for the first time and installing Zoom prior to Cáigale launching?
yes, we didn't do it at the beginning, but some of our participants did mention like, hey, we have some other community members that want to join this program, but they do not feel comfortable managing Zoom. So a couple of them just schedule a one-on-one session with me, and I show them how to install it over the phone. And when we were able to do so, is if you want to join Cáigale at the library, we can let you one of our tech devices, and we can show you how to do it. So an integral part of it was making sure that we are providing the tools, and as I mentioned before, conveying the methodology to make sure that the information is being absorbed by our participants.
Thank you. Do you notice different levels of participation depending on whether people are on their phones or on a laptop or desktop?
I think most of our participants join on their phones. We do see a lot of faces with a moving background because they're driving. So we do not recommend that, but you know, it happens. A lot of people cooking, a lot of people with their kids. So it has happened before that they introduce her to their whole families, right? And they ask us to do especially brain fuse online tutoring sessions for them especially. So it has, as I mentioned, I think evolved from me just showing what we can do at Cáigale to having one-on-one sessions with the children of our participants.
That's great.
So yeah, the level of engagement, yeah, it varies a lot. But the really important aspect of it, I believe, is that I have seen a progression of how our participants are vocalizing the needs, vocalizing what they would want the library to look like, especially now that we are developing the ESL programs, that they have been really explicit about what has worked for them in the past, what hasn't, and what they would like to see that we are implementing. So it's really exciting to be able to condense and synthesize all of that information and then show it to them in a diagram being, this is what you have created, right? I'm just putting it in this cute PowerPoint. So it's incredibly like collaborative.
Great. Any last questions? I think we have about 5 minutes. What was your most exciting event of all of the ones that you had?
Oh, I don't know if, I think one that has been like fundamental, as I mentioned, was BrainFuse because of the significance of the Family Learning Center prior to the pandemic. We would just get to hang out with the families and see that they were really active and participatory when it came to being present and the tutoring, right, that the kids were receiving at our Family Learning Center. So being able to translate that during the pandemic when the service was not being offered was definitely a great feel. And then my favorite part of each session is when someone shares their screen and they show us how to access the different resources, because there's obviously not only one way to get to our digital library, so that people feel the confidence to explore like where the library's website can take you it's incredible. I always tell them that I'm gonna end up not having a job after a couple more sessions of Cáigale, because they have truly become experts when it comes to exploring our website and sharing the resources within the community. So we are expanding, right, everything that we're offering through them. So yeah.
Fantastic. Great work. Yes, Gina is saying that it is always fun to see how users actually use a resource versus how we showed them or intended it to be used.
Yes, exactly. I don't think we imagine the reach that Cáigale could have. I definitely did not picture it to be running for almost a year and a half. It was just like, oh, it's going to be occurring while we're closed, and then we're going to transition back to in-person programming. But it has definitely showed that it's a staple in the community, that people feel really comfortable in the space of Cáigale. So there's no reason why we should not be offering it, this hybrid modality.
That's great. You're getting a lot of love about.
Thank you.
Thank you for sharing. And I believe that every library region in the state would want to have you. So
thank you. Thank you. Awesome. Yeah, I think we have 4 more minutes. Is there any questions or anything that that you want me to mention again, or something that was not clear? An example?
Oh, Cynthia's saying how after you announce a program, right after Cáigale, the families show up in like 15 minutes.
Yes, that happened with Loteria. We had Cáigale ending at 5:30, and the event was, if I'm not mistaken, at 6. And all the participants of Cáigale, we just saw them over here in an in-person programming. So it's great to see that those connections are going to be lasting, and that we have built that trust. Right, and part of building that trust is making sure that we are meeting the community where they are, and that we are patient to show them how to explore everything that we have to offer.
Great. Apparently you're recognized everywhere you go.
Yes. it's it's a long-lasting link that we have developed, so it's pretty great.
So Kathleen wants to know, how is it hybrid now, and what are those specific changes?
We do not offer a Cáigale Zoom in person per se, but we are offering the community talks to develop our programs. And this has been specific to the ESL programming that we will be launching during the fall. So the same format of us introducing the services that we have, we do it in person, right? We introduce our bilingual staff, and last week we held a community talk to explore precisely the different options that we have for ESL. So we gave tours of the different spaces that we have: the studio, which is our STEM space, the Family Learning Center, and the Teen Lounge. And we gave them a survey with the different programs that we could have in those spaces. But part of us showing what we could have was actually making sure that people were engaging with the tools and the materials, because that is really different if you say we can do an ESL 3D printing program, but if your audience does not have a reference of what 3D printing is, or how 3D printing can go, or how you can do something with it, it's meaningless. So it's making sure that we are communicating the possibilities of this by having you present in the space.
And Jacqueline, since this is a international conference, is curious if someone who doesn't live in California can caer.
Definitely. Everyone le pueden caer. You're more than welcome to come and get to know our community, to see what the community is doing, and get inspired by that as well.
All right. Well, we're down to 1 minute before the end of this session, and then we have a small break, and then there's 2 options, which are virtual field trips and Circle of Stories on Zoom. Thank you so much, Anna. Every time I've met you, you've inspired me and given me new ideas. So I feels like everyone feels that way who's been in attendance here.
No, thank you. Thank you for having me. Sorry about the speedy talk. But no, thank you. And if you have any questions, please reach out, and we make sure I can invite you to Cáigale. I can send you the Zoom, and also brainstorm what are the possibilities of adapting this program and making it grow throughout everywhere.